Podcast is proudly powered by Battleborn Batteries. Let the power of lithium take you on your journeys across the outdoor world. Battleborn Batteries designs and assembles the industry's top choice for lithium-ion batteries right here in the USA. Reliable, safe, and long-lasting, Battleborn makes for the sustainable and lightweight drop-in replacement for traditional lead-acid batteries. Ready to make the switch to lithium and the switch to green energy? All batteries are in stock now. Shop today at battlebornbatteries.com.
All right, what's up, everybody? Good evening to you all. Welcome to winter. Man, it is cold. Or should I say, winter is coming. That's a little Game of Thrones throw at you.
There you go.
But, anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in tonight. This is Lines In Live. I'm your host, Justin Patrick, and with me tonight, as always, co-host, a good friend, David Best of Primary Tackle and S.Y. Wilson Company. And we are powered by Battleborn Batteries and presented by Primary Tackle. And, man, it's been a couple of weeks since we've been on here live. We try to do a video every week. However, I was busy last week with preparation for the TOC. David has been in and out of town here lately.
A lot.
For the store. Yeah, a lot for the store. So we are back, guys. So thanks for bearing with us over the past couple of weeks. We greatly appreciate all of our viewers, and looking forward to seeing you all in the comments tonight. What's up, Brandon Palmer? So, Dave, man, before we jump into everything else tonight, as always, we don't have a product of the week video today, guys. I'm going to be honest. It's been hectic. Okay, there we go. Bloody Knuckles. So repair balm. I need some of that now.
That's why I've got it out.
Sweet.
Since you're discussing wintertime, guys, if you need something to repair your hands in this cold weather, I've been out rigging a couple of PA14, a PA14, a PA12 for tomorrow out there in that kayak shop, and I'm going to tell you, it's cold out there right now. And this stuff is great. It's a great repair lotion. I mean, it's there to put all that moisture back in your hands, undry them, fix them. That's what they're for.
Brandon wants to know, will it work on his ugly feet?
It probably would, but it's not anything I've ever tried, so I wouldn't know.
On the back it says recommended to clean your feet first, Brandon. So
yeah,
be sure to do that. Especially after a long day pedaling, those feet are clammy and sweaty and nasty. So, but yeah, it was brutal. 'Tis the season for some cold winter. We got the holiday decorations going on over here. So, hope you guys are going to have a great holiday season. Oh yeah, you and I have already talked about this, David. It's insane how early Christmas is already here, and we haven't even had the turkey and dressing yet with Thanksgiving. So,
man, that's all I've been doing for a week is decorating. we've built a sleigh for the Grinch. We have 200 houses in the windows, lights galore. I've got the store lit up tonight. I mean, it's gorgeous down there, but daggum, I'm so tired of decorating for Christmas.
Yeah. I got to give props to my wife. She did, her and my daughter did all the decorating while I was gone. Came back to a nice decorated Christmas house. So, but yeah, it's getting that time of year. The bass fishing is officially coming to a very slow screeching halt for the rest of the year. Although we do have the Tennessee Bass Nation starting their 2023 season in December 3rd on Del Hollow Lake. And in fact, the Bluegrass Kayak Anglers Club from Kentucky are going to be running an event that same weekend in conjunction with that tournament. So double dipping opportunities and also probably a much larger field.
Yeah.
I would imagine, we had a really good field last year, David, over 100 anglers.
Yeah, it was like close to 150. So
was it 150?
It was close to it. It was like 147 or something.
Wow, man. Yeah, I'm off. But yeah, it was a great turnout. I mean, we were packed in that restaurant. I don't think that they were even ready for that.
They weren't.
that many guys show up. But it's always kind of one of those, I would say it's slowly becoming quickly becoming a nationally recognized, big tournament, every single year. And for a great reason. It's Del Hollow, big smallmouth, big largemouth too, and for the most part, the lake's fairly empty. I remember last year, what was it, like 20, 25 feet low? But still not very many anglers on the water. They're boaters, I should say. So anyways, I'm looking forward to that. A lot of the West Tennessee guys go out and fish that one. Brian Knack had a good tournament out there last year. Shout out to him. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that one last tournament. Steve Baker, thank you, sir. Greatly appreciate that. Anything else, David? Any other news to cover before kind of jumping into this recap?
No, we're getting ready for Christmas here. I mean, there's a lot going on. It's amazed me how fast it's all snuck up on me, but we're still selling kayaks. I still got a great selection. There's no reason not to come out and buy one right now. We're doing what we can to help people get into boats as much as possible. And it's cold outside. Yes, the fishing is going to change a little bit, but you know what? If you're going to go fish the Wolf River, this is absolutely the best time in the world to go fish it. If you want to go catch a big fish, this is the best time in the world to go fish it. And guess what? You are going to be out there by yourself.
And you could probably still throw that buzzbait too.
You will be able to throw that buzzbait for at least a few more weeks.
Yeah.
And if you listen to Billy Ross Doyle, you can throw for the next. I've been with Billy when we caught him on the Wolf River in December on a buzzbait. So,
yeah.
Who knows?
I need to get out there, man. That is one thing that I've yet to do. I was really hoping to go with BRD, but maybe when he's in a little bit better health.
But he's doing better.
Good.
I need to call him. I haven't talked to him about a week and a half. He's doing better. He's still struggling, but he's doing much better. So we need to keep thinking about him for sure.
Yeah. Keep Billy Ross Doyle in your prayers, guys. He's gone through a little bit of a big medical situation.
Yeah. Stroke's not something you recover from quickly. So
no. So prayers out to him. Anyways, I want to first just play a little video to get you guys in the mood for some fishing talk. I captured this fish catch down there at the TOC. Speaking of buzzbait, and I figured you guys would like it here. This is for all my West Tennessee guys that love throwing that buzzbait. Here we go.
That's a giant. Oh no. Yeah. That's a giant. You little thing in there. Another one. Another 1920. Wow.
So I noticed. Say again.
What for all that wide open space over to the right hand side? I would have thought that was over the Wolf River.
I know. It wasn't a good quality of like first initially the cast, but you saw the toilet bowl just flush on it. I mean, it ended up not being as big as I thought, but it was still, I think it measured 19, but I think it was definitely my biggest fish on day one, which just got the ball rolling, man. It was really exciting. Actually, in fact, that was after I made a second pass through that area. But I want to first just kind of highlight a few things that took place down at TOC. Here lately, there's been conversation of launching destinations and just all the talk. If you missed the podcast that we had on here 2 or 3 weeks ago, we highlighted some of these topics of discussion and gave our opinions on it and whatnot. But I want to say, man, AJ and his team, like I was kind of thrown off, but I was really pretty. To me, it was a positive thing. Now there's some possible negative things that can come from it. And I'll get into those here in a second, but the communication was off the charts from the get-go. I mean, you guys, most of you all fishing kayak tournaments know that with these Hobie tournaments and Bassmaster tournaments, there's a period where communication is cut off. You can't obtain information from the locals, from a buddy, a guide. You can't get in a bass boat, and go fishing and all that kind of stuff. But in this particular situation, and for this tournament, any information that anglers were, accidentally receiving from locals, and you guys have all been there. Somebody comes up to you like, man, what's going on? You catch them like, yeah. I caught them on, whatever. And they proceed to tell you, well, James Bayou, man, they've been crushing them on a jig over there, whatever the case may be. They were sending out emails to all of us in the event every single day, informing us all of any tips that anybody had received, throughout that tournament. Even up to the last day, they were updated, tips, that they were sending out to people via email. And I found that pretty interesting. The other thing was that they had designated launches for this tournament. I'm not really sure exactly why that was. I didn't ask, but it didn't really affect me very much. And in fact, for me, it kind of helped to simplify the situation because, at Caddo Lake, you've got a ton of backwater. And even up on the northern end of it, you have Clinton Lake that is accessible and was fishable water during this tournament. But, it's quite a pedal to get up there. But there were some other ramps that, I didn't go and verify just because they ended up coming out with designated launches. But there were some other areas up there that you could have accessed that area by. But pretty much what it boiled down to is you had about 6 or 7 maybe 8 designated launches that you could choose from for actual tournament hours. But very interesting, man. I want to say just kind of my hats off to AJ and the Hobie crew, kind of taking the bull by the horns. I don't know if that's going to continue on into the 2023 season. Personally, I I don't think that it hurts, to have, that kind of information sent out to everybody, just so you alleviate the unfair or unlevel playing field talk, whatever it may be. But kind of a little bit different format, a little bit different for this tournament, but I think it was a good idea. David, we were talking about that last time, and you were saying that you were kind of against, or you weren't really sure how you felt about the designated launches.
I'm not for designated launch areas. What I would say do is define the area that you can fish in or that you can launch in.
Right. Yeah, I'd be curious to. Again, I didn't get the input of everybody else there at the event, but I'd be curious how everybody else felt about that. And maybe that was just a one-off situation for the TOC, especially with that much money being paid out. I'm sure quite a bit of that was coming from sponsors. So hey, let's tighten this down, for this special event. But I think it worked out well, for that particular group in that event. So my hats off to them. Let's dive into a little bit of day one. This was David. How many tournaments have you fished that were like a 3-day event?
I've not fished a ton of 3-day events. I've fished a ton of 2-day events. 3-day, probably 10 or 15. I mean, but you're getting into, when you fish a 3-day event, you're getting into a lot of fish management, a lot of changes that go on. So those are always interesting.
Yeah, dude, I'm gonna tell you, man. If this was a good warm up for a 3-day event, kind of getting your toes wet, this was it, man. Every single day, it was different.
Yeah.
I went down, I believe I told you I went down Saturday, the opening day of practice. And, man, everything for me was isolated cover, trees. The second cast on an isolated tree, I catch a 5-pounder. If that doesn't start, thinking you in that particular direction, I don't know what would. But isolated cover and stuff like that was the deal for me. Duck blinds, any old abandoned duck blinds, stuff like that seemed to play. And I heard that, that continued to play for some of the anglers throughout the tournament. But for me, come tournament day, man, Friday, things were a lot different. It actually it seemed to flip flop. And, my roommate, Dave Sewell, his theory was that the cold front and everything was going to really fire him up and get him schooled up. And at the time, I was thinking, no, man, it's gonna really turn them off. They're gonna get tight-lipped, not want to eat anything. But needless to say, eventually he ended up being right. And I'm gonna kind of get into that. But it was absolutely insane, man. Every single day was different. Starting Friday. I had been catching them all on jigs and stuff like that in practice. And come Friday, I wasn't getting anything. I caught one on a swim jig first thing in the morning. And then after that, I didn't get a bite for a while on the swim jig. Actually, not at all after that. Picked up a spinner bait. There was a little bit of wind blowing into my area. Didn't get a bite on that. And I just kind of had, one of these thoughts like, man, pick up the buzzbait again. So I tied on the black buzzbait. And it was that in that video, like for my entire limit, I proceeded to fill out my limit with that buzzbait, and they were just all strikes just like that, just violent, and immediately running off and pulling line and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun.
So what possessed you? Considering you had not caught a fish on a topwater all freaking week, to decide to tie on a buzzbait? I mean, why? What was it? Something you've done in the past? Was it something that was just a whim? What was? We're gonna quiz Justin on what goes on in that brain of his when he's fishing a tournament. What possessed you to decide to do that?
In this situation, I knew the front was coming. I knew the next day, that cold front was going to come through, and I knew that they had to eat something. And all of these baits that I was throwing, granted, I was throwing up until about 2 to 3 foot of water, and usually 2 to 3 feet of water, you got to think that fish is probably not sitting on the bottom. They're probably going to be suspended in that 2 to 3 feet, and anything that's kind of swimming by them, yeah, you get a bite that way. But when I'm fishing that 2 or 3 feet of water, that's when I really like that top water, because it's just skimming right over the top of their head. And the big ones, they just react to it. So I wasn't getting any bites on just the traditional moving bait, spinner bait, swim jig. And I was pretty confident that there was, good fish in this area. I had caught a 5-pounder there on Saturday. I had another really good one bite my lure that I shook off in practice, I believe, on Wednesday. So I was pretty confident that there was good fish in there. And for me, it was, they weren't biting the traditional moving baits, so I needed to get them to react. I didn't think that a jackhammer or a chatterbait was really going to be the deal, and so it was a combination of I needed to get them to react to something, plus I knew that they were going to want to eat something because that front was moving through, and usually the day before a front is that's prime time. So, I had tied on a white buzzbait in practice in a different area and never got a bite on it. So I just thought, it's darker in here. You guys could see in the video, black, it's swampy, darker water, and that black may be the deal. And, by that time that I tied it on, I had already made a pass through that area with, the swim jig and the spinner bait and never got a bite. So, this was actually when I tied on the buzzbait, it was about my second pass through, about halfway through it. So once I got my first bite on a buzzbait, then I circled back around and started making another pass through there. But
well, good call.
One of those just like little feelings that you get, man. We talk about it here on the show, and you guys, I don't want to sound like like just repeating the pros or whatnot, but the time on the water is where you get those little instinctual feelings and stuff like that, from experiences, and just knowing that if you try this bait and you've tried that bait and they're not, they're not reacting to it, then you got to make some kind of change, do something. And typically, if they won't bite, a swim jig or a chatterbait, spinner bait, stuff like that, then in my mind, they need something to react to, something to kind of motivate them into biting a little bit more. So buzzbait was the deal. Excuse me, guys. I'm battling the cold too, so I'm coughing.
Sitting in all that weather and cold air, I'm sure you are.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting going into day 2. That's when the weather moved in, and things, that was completely different. The day started out a lot different, and I really kind of went into it expecting it to be different, but I wasn't, going to completely flip flop and start pulling out a shaky head or something like that. In fact, that would have been extremely slow. We had good cloud cover in the morning time on Saturday. But it was supposed to, the sun was supposed to come out and then be, partly cloudy, but mostly sunny. And in fact, I could see it off in the distance, that clear weather starting to move through. So I knew that I had a pretty limited time frame to really capitalize on that morning bite. And Saturday I started out. I threw the buzzbait for a minute, but I pretty much kind of wrote the buzzbait off, the night before. But I threw it for a minute and then tied on a chatterbait, wasn't getting bit on that. And the way that this area is set up, was pretty unique. It's kind of hard to explain, but there was some completely different sections in it that had these Sylvania mats. And man, when you looked out, there were so many areas that typically would have been open that you could pass through, but the Sylvania had just been blown into those areas and just created these massive mats that you could not get through. In fact, Sunday, a guy comes through, comes right in front of me and starts trying to jet through one of these Sylvania mats and started getting bogged down. I don't know what he was thinking, but he got bogged down and couldn't get to wherever he was going. But it was just really, really thick stuff. But on Saturday, I knew that the cold front was going to do one or two things. It was either going to push them further into those mats, or it was going to move them out. And it ended up being a little bit of both. You had some fish that were kind of moving out away from the tree line, and then you had some fish that were pushing up into the mats. You got to think and this is something, I know, you've probably learned over your career, David. But when when that cold front blows through it, if they have a mat or something like that they can get up underneath, traditionally that vegetation and stuff like that holds heat. So that water up underneath that mat, it's going to be a little bit warmer. And so
Too much information.
We'll just end this podcast now. I don't care, man. The thing is that here's my thought on this, and I'm not giving up spots or anything like that, but until you go out and you experience it for yourself, you don't really believe it. You can hear it, you can hear the song and dance all you want, but until you go out and you experience it for yourself and you see it work in front of you, man, that's when it flips. Some people, they may go out and just do it because that's what they heard to do. But anyways, punching mats, throwing a lipless seemed to be the deal on day 2. And then day 3, was mostly lipless. Made it pass through my area, started catching, I actually filled out my limit first thing in the morning and then made another pass through there and then discovered this massive school of fish sitting on the size of a dinner table. I mean, there was probably 60, 70 fish in there that I was just catching one after the other, man. It was so much fun. That's when I caught the 22 and pretty much, culled out all of my other 5 fish, limit except for 119 that I had caught early that day. But some of the comments.
Well, a lot of the comments will be talking to people about inventory.
Okay. I'm just rambling then.
No, we're listening. We're all listening.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, man. Just one of those deals where everything just kind of came together, and the cards just fell, in my lap, for that tournament. I don't know.
So let me quiz you for a second. So you decided to change over to the lipless. I mean, so why? And I have my own theory on this answer and everything, but what was the reasoning behind switching to the lipless after fishing the buzzbait the day before? I mean, you were a little further. I'm assuming you were a little further out off of the Sylvania, fishing some grass of some kind. But what was the thought process, and why did you go to that little deeper tactic versus the top water feeds?
Well, it was just kind of a matter of trial and error. I memean, they weren't really up in the shade, up in the trees like they were on day 1. They were just kind of, so I knew that they had to have gone somewhere. My whole thought was every single day I was just concerned that I was going to run out of fish because it was a relatively small area. It wasn't very, very big. But there was like 3 different sections to it that were all producing fish. So, and excuse me, one of those, and then again, this one section just had this massive Sylvania mat that had water up underneath it that connected from one side of the lake to the other. And so I pretty much kind of figured that it was a transition area, and that's why fish were congregating there. But the lipless has always been a big player. It's always a big player this time of year, but especially when those temperatures start to get down in the low 60s and the upper 50s, that's when it's really good. That's when I've had the most success on it. And then it became a matter of that was the best bait to locate, where the fish had moved out to, because out in front of the trees there was a grass flat, and they were kind of, some fish were tucked down in the grass, but a lot of them were just kind of roaming, throughout this area. And so, it's a great search bait. And then, I just personally have a lot of confidence in it. And then, of course, that cold front, is probably going to mess them up a little bit on the overreaction baits and stuff like that, like the buzz bait. And I'm not one of these types that I'm going to put a chatterbait in my hand and throw it, whether it's catching them or not. It's one of those, it's a very specific type deal. So if I don't start getting bit on the chatterbait pretty quick, then I'm cutting it off and I'm tying on something else. And so that's kind of what led me to the lipless. And I really, I had 1 1/4 ounce lipless bait in this color that I was throwing that I had bought just on a whim one day, and never thought I might need it one day, and it came into play big time this tournament. So, but once I found the school on day 3, I was catching them on the 1/4 ounce, but they were mostly 16s and 17s. And then I tied on the 1/2 ounce, and that's when I got the big one. With that little bit bigger bait.
Yeah.
AJ, it was not the jackal this time. It was actually a booyah.
You do like that jackal.
I've got one in a shad pattern, and then the others are kind of in that gold red pattern. I like that. I like that color. It's orange and stuff as well, but I like it on Pickwick. On those gravel bars and stuff like that. Those smallmouth, just something about that gold color, man.
Terrible color to throw on Pickwick. You should
No,
throw anything with gold and red in it on Pickwick.
Terrible color.
Why would you do such a thing?
Probably because
I'm sure they do sell some liplesses somewhere in Ohio.
Brandon, he just don't keep it in his hand long enough. It's not it doesn't work well with his live scope, so.
Oh.
Hey, I did see that Garmin's got or Bass Pro's going to have their 106 SVs on the Black Friday sale again this year. So anybody,
Of course they are.
I will be there to get one of those. But it's so funny, man. It's when you hear the awards and stuff like that. People get up there and they talk and they give their experience, but you don't really hear the little tidbit drama that goes on behind the scenes. So I wanted to share this because it was so crazy to me. I moved up from 9th into 5th place on day 2. So going into day 3, I was sitting 5th. And when I was catching all those fish in that school, I wasn't even submitting fish. But once I did, I had 50 pictures of fish from the past hour and a half. And so I was weeding through them, just making sure. I knew I had the 22. I knew I had a 19 in there. And then I had a lot of 18s, 18 and quarters, and 17s. And so, I just went through and started submitting, all of the 5 biggest fish that I thought I had. Well, once we got back to the ramp, I loaded up, and the photo submission deadline was at 4:00. So I'm heading back to the Airbnb, and it's 3:50, And I just had this thought, like, man, just pull off and just see if you did get all of the biggest fish, in your pictures. And I started weeding through them all, and I was having to go between Tourney X and the gallery just because I had two 18 and a quarters in there, and then my smallest was an 18. But I found another 18 and a quarter, and that looked like it was a different fish. So I was looking at that one, go back to Tourney X, and I was looking at both of the 18 and a quarters and just making sure that it wasn't the same fish. I felt really, felt confident that it wasn't. I found two markings that were completely different on all three fish. And so submitted the 18 and a quarter because, you've been doing this. I mean, I've been doing this a while. Everybody knows that, man, sometimes that little quarter inch can be the difference maker.
Yeah.
Like in a big way. And you never know. And there was two other guys. There was Guillermo Gonzalez and Russ Snyders, who, if I recall, I know for sure Russ hadn't submitted any fish yet. And Russ was sitting in fourth going into day 3. So I was pretty concerned about him. I was concerned about G. And then so I submitted that 18 and a quarter to cull out that 18. Well, once we get up there, we get to awards, and I'm talking with some people, and I found out that Russ, he didn't catch a limit. Gonzalez didn't catch a limit. So I'm like, man, okay, I've got second place, locked in. And then he calls us up there, and he goes, it was Brady Storms and myself, and he says it was a quarter-inch difference between second and third place. So in my mind, I'm like, oh my word, that's exactly why I had that feeling to pull off and submit that, that quarter-inch call. So when he called up me for third, dude, I was completely shocked.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to think in the moment, but I mean, it was almost like, wait, are you sure? You did accept that fish that I submitted, right? I almost wanted to pull out my phone and just double check that he approved that fish, which he did. But so Brady Storms, ended up catching, he called a cull fish in the last 45 seconds to a minute, and got it on the board and submitted it and edged me out by 1 quarter. $5,000 difference, man.
Yeah.
I mean, this was one of those like that, FLW tournament on Kentucky, like the last one they had where Lambert just had it, he won after the first hour on day 3 and everybody else was just fighting for second. That's how I felt. It was okay. Brian Nelly, he's got this one in the bag. Yeah. I mean, I had a shimmer of hope that maybe he caught all of his big, maybe he was going to run out of fish on day 3. And then he comes back with his best bag ever. And I was like, yeah. But I'm going to tell you what happened, man. Those fish, they were pulling out of those, all the fish that were up in the mats, up in the grass, up close to the bank and stuff like that. On that day 3, when it was even colder, that pulled them all out. And I think that's why that big school was sitting there, is because all those fish in that area pulled out. And that was just the one hard spot in that area with a few little isolated grass patches on it. And they were they were in there just buttoned up next to each other. So pay attention to the conditions, guys. I mean, that's really important when you're fishing these tournaments where you got changing conditions. Really pay attention to those conditions, because if you're in an area where there's fish, it's not often that it's not like they're going to leave and go to the other side of the lake. They're going to stay in. They're going to be in that area. They're just going to have moved a little bit. And that was the biggest lesson that I took away from this, especially on a shallow fishery like Caddo, is that, it doesn't have to be, major adjustments. They may not have gone very far, but they did move a little bit. So you just got to look around and keep the bait in the water, keep moving.
That's it. I mean, it's kind of, I was a little surprised. I actually expected it, like kind of like what you'd said earlier, I kind of expected it to get tougher with the cold front coming through and brightening up and everything. But you guys caught them better. I think day 3 was the best day that everybody had.
For the most part, yeah.
there was freaking just limits, big limits posting up early. I mean, it's left and right. I was like, what the heck?
I know, the coldest day. I mean, it was 68 degrees during practice, 68 to 70 degrees during practice, even 71, 72 in some areas. And then it dropped to about 62 degrees on Saturday. And then Sunday, my morning temperatures were 58, 59 degrees. So, I mean, it was steadily dropping. And we're talking about a lake with an average depth of 4 feet, and where I was at, it was, 3.5. So it was definitely surprising, but I think a lot of people, I mean, you're talking about, I mean, everybody in this tournament was a hammer. They all knew what they were doing. And it just seemed like if you were around those fish, then you were going to be able to make an easy adjustment to keep up with them. I think Brian Nelly, I don't think that he had to really move very much at all. I think that he was able to still throw his topwater bait and stuff. I don't know how deep he was fishing, but that was incredible to me that he continued to catch them. He caught them all 3 days on the exact same bait. So
That's
pretty awesome.
Pretty wild. But if there was a lake for an out-of-town boy that sets up the way it needs to set up for him, Caddo is one of those for a Florida boy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of his run of the mill anyway. So.
Yep. Yeah, I was thinking that too. I was like, well, this is right up his alley. Shallow grass, top water. That's his jam, I'm sure. Yeah. Anyways, my overall experience down there was nothing short of amazing. I mean, the banquets that they ran were amazing. I would encourage everybody to put that on your bucket list to try and make that TOC. That is a special event to be a part of. And I mean, the locals were really awesome. I mean, we had so Caddo Lake is one of like 3 or 5 destinations throughout the entire world that is like that, just cypress forest. And there were people from all over the world, people from Japan, a lot of people from Japan there taking pictures, hiring guides and stuff like that, coming out and taking pictures. It was really neat. We had a couple come up to myself on at the end of Saturday, and they were out there for photography, but the lady was like super excited, asking me questions about the format, how to, what she was looking at on Tourney X and stuff. And she said that, that they were all rooting for us. She goes, yeah, well, I talked to another guy from Indiana, Dave Sewell. I was like, oh yeah, that's my roommate. And she was like, well, we're rooting for you guys. It was so awesome. The guy comes up. I mean, people were excited, man. It was really cool. And then even let's see, Steve Fields, he was out the ramp Sunday morning, taking pictures and video and stuff like that. It was pretty cool, man. I felt like a part of like a really big event, But it's only going to get even better. I think that event, the Hobie Bass Open Series, especially when you've got sellout tournaments all year long.
Yeah.
You're only going to get bigger and better. So. You don't have the schedule in front of you, do you?
The Hobie BOS schedule? Yeah, I can have it in front of me in about 2 seconds.
Yeah, I spent
the 30 minutes after we closed the store putting my stuff together for what are we looking at for next year? What do I have going on? When what's going to be what's going to be where, all that kind of good stuff. So they've got a heck of a schedule for next year. I said I was only going to fish 3 or 4. I've got 6 currently slated for next year, and still freaking going back and forth on 1 or 2 of them. Let's see. So I mean, they're starting in February on the Harris chain, which is going to be a really, really good event, I do believe.
Yep.
And then coming back to Caddo in March, right?
Yep.
I'm trying to find this daggum schedule.
So what I learned is when they schedule a tournament of champions, because it's a smaller field of only 50, then they work out a deal to where they come back the following year for a full open event, and that's how they work with the local tourism bureaus to get those events.
That makes a lot of sense, and it's probably exactly what they did and why they did it the way they did it. Oh, come on. You know what? I found this thing 100 times in the last week. And all of a sudden,
Brandon, the payouts were a lot more this year. 45 for first, second was 15,000, and third 10,000, and then it went down from there to 7,500 for fourth. It paid out all the way through 10th place, and they were all really, really good payouts. And then the bass and big bass was $1,000.
I would have took any of those checks and been happy with it.
Yeah. You probably would have taken them right over to that casino too and dumped it in there.
It would not have been a first for me, I promise you. Dang it. I had this thing up. Not even. I hate to do this.
It's posted on the. I think I saw. I saw it earlier on KBN's page. Anyways, it's a really great schedule for next year.
Well, I sat down and I put in all the WTBY tournaments, all the Hobie tournaments. I put in all my personal stuff is that I have to do. Well, I can't get into the KBN page because I haven't joined their page. I cannot believe I do not have this open. Oh, let's see here. I've had it open all evening. Oh, here it is. All right, I found it. So, February 18th through 19th is the Harris Chain. March the 11th and 12th is Lake Caddo. April 1st and 2nd, Sandy Cooper. That's one of those that I keep going back and forth on. April 29th through the 30th is Lake Seminole. May 20th through 21st is Kentucky Lake. I wish it was like 2 weeks earlier. But I still could catch them that week. We'll see. That's definitely one I'll be at. June 24th through 25th is at Cayuga Lake in Seneca, New York. July the 29th through the 30th is New River in Beckley, West Virginia. And then August 19th through 20th is the Mississippi River in La Crosse, Wisconsin. And then September 23rd through the 24th is Sam Rayburn in Jasper, Texas, which is another one that I definitely will be at. Those last two are almost for sure for me. So,
yeah.
I'm going back to Wisconsin just to drink spotted cow and eat fried cheese curds. My two main objectives when I go there.
I love how you always highlight the reason that you're going to these tournaments, and it's never for the fishing. It's always for the beer and the food.
Hey, it's all about what you're there for, what you love.
I ain't nothing wrong with that at all. I do enjoy the traveling myself, but not at 2:30 in the morning with my eyes barely open.
Yeah, that's a rough trip. I don't know how you made it that one back.
On hopes and dreams, I think maybe for about 5 minutes there, I was probably in some kind of trance. I'm not even sure. I don't remember a lot of the trip.
Yeah, I hear you. So,
man. But anyways,
we're coming up on 7:55. I know you're fixing to have to go because you got another event right after this event.
Yeah, I'm going to go jump on Paddle and Fin podcast. They invited me over there to, I think it's going to be us top 3 to talk about that. So that's going to start here at 8:15.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to, I'm not sure if that's live or not. I can't say for sure, but
I couldn't tell you.
anyways, it'll be on their page if you guys want to check that out as well. I'm interested to hear more from Brian Nelly and Bailey. Gosh, the other guy's name I just keep forgetting. But from second place guy as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, any closing thoughts, David?
Yeah, a couple quick ones. Guys, don't forget, tomorrow's Justin's birthday, little birdie told me. So,
Oh, yeah, it
reach
is.
out to him and wish him a happy birthday. How are you going to be tomorrow?
36.
Ooh, getting old, boy.
I see. I thought that I was already 36. That's how old I'm getting. Is I already thought that I was 36. So
Well, you're not even close to getting old. So anyway, I wish I was 36 again. Hey, be looking for. There are a lot of kayak sales going to be starting very, very soon. Just an FYI for those of y'all out there that are thinking about buying another kayak. So I'm getting a lot of emails from kayak manufacturers saying, "Hey, from this date to this date, we're relaxing map pricing, and you can adjust what you're selling stuff for." So come see me.
Yep.
Just saying. I'm not.
I want to add one last thing, man. You know, I know I've talked about it before, and you carry them up there at the shop, David. But I cannot tell you just how important the rod was for what I was doing all week. We're talking about a foot in between these trees that I was making these casts through with that buzzbait and that Proteus rod from Little Miami Outfitters. I was throwing the 7-foot medium heavy, and I mean, it just has the perfect tip. I'm just always tickled to death when I use that bait, when I use that rod, because it puts it exactly where you want. I mean, it is a perfect rod. I know some of you guys in the kayaks, you only like to carry a couple of rods. I know a lot of people like to throw chatterbaits and swim baits, swim jigs and spinner baits and stuff. And it is a excellent rod for every single one of those presentations. The lipless crankbait, I was throwing on the 7.2. I never lost a fish. Every single one of them stayed pinned. It's got enough give to it that when they make that dive with the boat, it's got some give to let that fish take it. But it's still got enough backbone. You can tie on a Texas rig, which once the bite died, once that school died off for me on Sunday, I tied on a 1/8 ounce tungsten with a 4/0 EWG hook and a Zoom Z crawl, and on the 7-foot medium heavy, and still had plenty enough backbone to set the hook and get a good hook set from a distance. So just an all around very, very versatile rod, and David's really liking them. A lot of you guys that have tried them have all given me good feedback. Appreciate that. And I would definitely recommend going and picking one up, man. You won't regret it.
I'll second that.
But anyways, guys, with that, we will say good night. Thank you all for tuning in tonight, and wish you all happy holidays and spend some time with your family, these holidays. And we will probably do one more show this coming up month, and then we're probably going to take a little bit of a hiatus for the holidays so we can spend some time with our family as well. I know David's going to be pretty busy up there at the store, just a little. But anyways, guys, wish you all the best, and we will catch you next time right here on Lines In Live.
Thank you, guys.